The stranger at the door, the rain fell hard that night, tapping on the tin roof like impatient fingers. Ethan sat alone inside his small wooden cabin, trying to fix his old radio. Out here, on the edge of the wild forest, there were no neighbors for miles. His only company was the fire crackling in the stone hearth and the wind that howled outside. Most nights were quiet, but tonight felt different. He had the strange feeling that someone was watching him. Suddenly, a loud, frantic knocking shattered. The silence, it wasn't just a knock. It was pounding, desperate and wild. Ethan froze. No one ever came this far into the woods at night. He grabbed his flashlight and walked carefully to the door. The knocking continued, even faster now. When Ethan opened the door, just a crack. Cold wind and rain rushed in. Standing outside was a woman not human. Her skin was pale blue, shining a little under the light, and her long black hair was soaked from the rain. In her arms, she held a small girl, wrapped in a thin, dirty blanket. The girl looked very young, maybe 5 or 6, but her face was even paler than her mother's. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was shallow. The woman's eyes were wide with fear and pain. She looked up at Ethan, her whole body shaking. "Please," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Please, save my daughter. I'll do anything. Just don't let her die." Ethan hesitated. He had heard stories about aliens living in the forest, running from something terrible, but he never believed them. Now, one was right in front of him. He looked at the little girl. She was barely alive. Ethan's heart beat faster. He knew that if he didn't help, the child would die here in the cold. "Come in," Ethan said quickly, moving aside. The alien woman rushed inside, almost falling with the weight of her child. Water dripped everywhere. She laid the girl gently on Ethan's old couch, covering her with what was left of the blanket. The little girl's lips were blue, her body so cold it felt like ice. Ethan grabbed extra blankets from his room and wrapped the girl tightly. He stoked the fire until it blazed, hoping to bring some warmth back. The woman kneeled beside her daughter, tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked up at Ethan again. "I beg you," she whispered, her hands pressed together. "Help us. If you save my child, I'll do anything you want. Anything." Ethan shook his head, embarrassed and worried. "I'm not a doctor. I can keep her warm, but I don't know what else to do." The woman looked desperate. "You are human. Humans know medicines. Please, she needs help. If she doesn't get warm soon, she will die." Ethan ran to his small cabinet and found some old medicine, painkillers, cough syrup, bandages. Nothing special, but maybe it would help. He brought a cup of warm water for the girl and gently touched her forehead. She was burning with fever. The woman tried to wake her daughter, calling softly, "Mira, Mira, please wake up." The girl stirred, just a little. Her eyes fluttered, showing bright, shining irises. She looked so weak and fragile. Ethan felt a pain in his chest. He gave her a small sip of water, but she barely swallowed. The woman cried harder, clutching her daughter's small hand. Suddenly, loud noises echoed from the woods. Something moving fast through the trees. The woman's head snapped up, eyes full of panic. "They're coming," she whispered. "They found us." Ethan moved to the window and saw strange lights moving between the trees like flashlights, but brighter and blue. The woman stood and ran to him. "You must hide us. Please, if they find us, they'll take my daughter. I cannot fight them alone." Ethan felt fear rise in his chest. Who were these people? What did they want with a dying child? He turned off the lights and pulled the curtains shut. "Go to the back room," he whispered. "Hide under the bed. I'll try to keep them away." The woman lifted her daughter in her arms, her body shaking with both cold and fear. She looked at Ethan with grateful, desperate eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of hope and terror. She disappeared into the shadows of Ethan's cabin. leaving him standing in the dark living room, heart pounding in his chest. Outside, the blue lights moved closer. The rain fell harder, as if the sky itself was warning him. Ethan knew his quiet life was over. Whatever was coming for the alien mother and her daughter was already here. Asterisk hidden in the shadows, the back room of Ethan's cabin was small, with a dusty bed and old boxes piled against the wall. Lyra, the alien mother, squeezed beneath the bed, still clutching her weak daughter. She held her breath, listening to Ethan's footsteps as he moved through the dark cabin, pretending everything was normal. Myra's breathing was quiet but shaky. Lyra stroked her hair gently, humming a strange, soft tune from her home world. She didn't know if Mira could even hear her, but she had to try. Ethan pressed his ear to the door. The blue lights outside flickered brighter, moving in careful, wide circles. He could see shadows, tall, thin shapes gliding between the trees. Then came the sound of boots squelching in the mud. 3 figures stepped out of the darkness and approached his cabin. Their faces were covered by metal masks, with blue lenses that glowed like a wild animal's eyes. A voice came through the wooden door, cold and metallic. "Open. We know you are there." The voice didn't sound human. It sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Ethan swallowed his fear. He grabbed a heavy wrench and moved toward the door. "Who are you?" he shouted, trying to sound brave. "What do you want at this hour?" the voice replied, sharper now. "We are looking for 2 fugitives. Dangerous creatures. They escaped from our transport. Return them, and we will leave you in peace." Ethan forced himself to breathe slowly. "I'm alone," he said, glancing at the dark hallway leading to the back room. "No one here but me." The strangers did not leave. Instead, they began circling the cabin, shining their lights through every crack and window. Lyra clamped a hand over Mira's mouth as footsteps echoed just outside the thin wooden wall. She could hear the masked hunters whispering in their strange language. For a moment, the only sound was the rain hammering on the roof. Suddenly, a sharp bang rattled the back door. The hunters were trying to force their way inside. Ethan rushed toward the sound. He picked up an old hunting rifle, loaded it, and pointed it at the door, hands shaking. He had never fired it at anyone before. "Get away," he yelled, his voice cracking. "I'm warning you." Banging stopped. Silence. Then the leader spoke. This time from right behind the door. "You protect the child and the mother." "Do you know what they are?" Ethan hesitated, then answered honestly. "I know they are scared. I know the child is dying." "That's enough." A strange metallic laugh echoed outside. "You are brave, human, or perhaps foolish. We will find them, if not tonight, then soon." The blue lights began to fade as the hunters disappeared back into the trees. But Ethan knew this was not over. He locked the doors and sat down, trying to calm his racing heart. Lyra crawled out from under the bed, Mira still in her arms. She crept into the kitchen, where Ethan sat with his head in his hands. "Thank you," she whispered, voice shaking. "You did not have to help us. Those men, they are not men. They are trackers. My people call them the Cold Eyes. They will not stop." Ethan looked at Lyra, really seeing her for the first time. Her skin glowed faintly blue in the darkness. She looked so tired, but her eyes were strong. "Why are they after you?" he asked softly. Lyra's face fell. She explained, in simple words, that her people had come to Earth as refugees after their own planet was destroyed in a war. Some humans had helped, but others saw them as dangerous, or as something to hunt and sell. The trackers were hired by a powerful group to capture any surviving aliens, especially children with special gifts. "Mira is special?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra nodded. "She can heal others with her touch, but it makes her weak. That is why she is sick. The trackers get her, they will use her for terrible things. Ethan felt a deep anger rise inside him. He looked at the sleeping girl, her tiny chest rising and falling with effort. "I won't let them hurt her," he said. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out how to help her." Just then, Mira whimpered in her sleep. Her small hand reached for her mother, but also toward Ethan. Lyra smiled through her tears, seeing hope for the first time in many days. The rain finally stopped. But for Ethan, Lyra, and little Mira, the real storm had only just begun. A mother's secret: the morning light crept into Ethan's cabin, painting pale lines on the wooden floor. Ethan had barely slept, sitting in a chair by the fire, watching over his unexpected guests. Lyra, the alien mother, stayed awake too. She sat on the floor with her knees pulled up, holding Mira's small hand all night. Ethan brewed tea and tried to clear his mind. He kept thinking about the trackers, the cold eyes, and their strange blue lights in the woods. He wondered if they were still nearby, hiding and waiting for their chance. But he knew, as soon as it was daylight, they would need to decide what to do next. Myra moaned softly in her sleep, shivering even with 2 thick blankets covering her. Her skin was cold and damp. Ethan moved closer and placed his hand on her forehead. He didn't need to be a doctor to know she was very sick. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes tired and red. "Is there medicine?" she asked, her voice low and hopeful. Ethan shook his head. "I gave her all I have. It's not enough." He tried to smile, but it didn't feel real. "The nearest hospital is too far. The roads are muddy and full of fallen trees from the storm." "And if the trackers are watching," Lyra interrupted, voice trembling, "I need to tell you something. Mira is not like other children. She was born with a gift." Lyra's gaze was intense now, her blue eyes shining. "She can heal wounds. She can take away pain with her hands. But when she uses this gift, it takes her strength. Sometimes it makes her very weak, like now." Ethan listened carefully. The story sounded impossible, but he had already seen things he never imagined. Lyra explained more, her words slow but clear. "Before we ran, Mira saved many people, both human and alien. That's why the trackers want her. They want to use her power, to control her, to sell her. But every time she helps someone, she suffers." Lyra's voice broke. "Now, she's dying because she tried to save me." Ethan sat in silence. He thought about his own lonely life. No one had ever risked so much for him. He looked at Myra, small and helpless, and felt something strong inside him, a promise he wanted to make. "Is there any way to help her?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded. "There is one hope. In the heart of this forest, there is a rare earth flower. My people learned it can heal our children when nothing else works, but it only blooms once every few years. My husband found some last year. He saved it in a secret place, a hollow tree, near the old stone ruins. If I can get it, Mira will live." Ethan frowned. He knew the old ruins, a place deep in the woods, past wild streams and rocky hills. It was far and dangerous, even for a healthy person. "Let me go," Ethan said. "Tell me what the flower looks like. I'll bring it back." Lyra shook her head, fear flashing in her eyes. "The trackers are hunting for us. If you go alone, they may follow and catch you. Or worse, find Mira here with no one to protect her." Ethan thought hard. He did not want to leave the mother and child alone, but he could not let Mira die. "Then we'll go together," he decided. "We'll leave as soon as possible. If we move fast, maybe we can reach the ruins before the trackers realize." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "I know the way. The flower is small, with blue petals and a silver stem. We must hurry. The longer we wait, the weaker Mira becomes." Ethan prepared quickly. He packed water, bread, and his old hunting knife. Lyra wrapped Mira carefully in a warm blanket and hugged her close. Mira's eyelids fluttered open for a moment. She stared at Ethan, her gaze calm but full of pain. "Are we safe?" she whispered. Ethan kneeled beside her, forcing a gentle smile. "We're going somewhere special. You have to be strong, Mira. Can you do that for me?" Mira nodded softly. Lyra lifted her up, and the three of them stepped out of the cabin, leaving everything behind. As they walked through the wet grass, Ethan kept glancing over his shoulder. Every shadow looked dangerous. The forest was full of strange soundsbirds, rustling branches, and sometimes something bigger, moving just out of sight. For the first hour, they saw nothing but mist and trees. But as they neared the old stone ruins, Ethan heard the distant crack of a branch, the quiet hum of something metallic. The trackers were not far behind. Ethan felt the tension grow. He moved faster, helping Lyra when she stumbled, carrying Mira when she was too tired to walk. The journey was hard, and every step felt like a race against time and the darkness following them. Ahead, the ancient ruins rose from the ground, covered in moss and fog. Somewhere in those stones was the secret that could save Myror Cost. Them everything. Asterisk the hunt begins. Lyra and little Mira finally reached the old stone ruins hidden deep in the forest. The sky above was still gray and heavy from the night's rain, and a thick mist clung to the ground. The ruins were quiet. Only the distant calls of strange birds broke the silence. The stones were old, cracked, and covered with soft green. Moss-like they had been forgotten for hundreds of years. Lyra led the way, her arms wrapped tightly around Mira. She moved quickly, her steps light and silent. Ethan followed close behind, watching every shadow. He gripped his hunting knife, ready for anything. Mira lay in her mother's arms, her eyes half open, breathing slow and shallow. Each breath sounded weaker than the last. Lyra stopped in front of a broken stone wall. She looked around, then knelt beside a hollow in the rock. Reaching inside, she pulled out a small cloth pouch. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a single flower with blue petals and a silver stem. Just as she had described, the flower shimmered faintly, as if holding a bit of light from another world. "It's here," Lyra whispered. She turned to Ethan, her eyes wet with hope and fear. "We must give it to her now." Ethan nodded, helping Lyra lay Mira gently. On a patch of moss, Lyra crushed a few petals and mixed them with water in a small wooden cup she carried. Carefully, she held the cup to Mira's lips. The girl swallowed slowly, her small hands clutching her mother's sleeve. They waited in silence, every second feeling longer than the last. Suddenly, a branch snapped somewhere close by. Ethan stiffened. He heard low voices, cold and metallic, drifting through the fog. He looked at Lyra, and she nodded. They both understood the trackers had found them. "Take Mira and hide," Ethan whispered quickly. He stood up, gripping his knife tighter. He could see blue lights blinking in the mist, moving between the ancient stones. The cold eyes were getting closer, their footsteps heavy on the wet earth. Lyra tried to lift Mira, but the girl was too weak. Lyra's heart pounded as she pulled her daughter behind a crumbling pillar, using her own body as a shield. She whispered gentle words in her native language, hoping to keep Mira calm. Ethan moved behind a low wall, breathing hard. He remembered his father's words from long ago. Bravery is not about being fearless, but about standing strong when fear is all you have left. He watched as three figures in metal masks appeared out of the mist. Their eyes glowed blue. Behind their masks, they held strange weapons, half-blade. One tracker scanned the ground with a small device. It beeped and flashed, showing the heat left by their footprints. The tracker hissed to the others. "They are close. Spread out. Find the child." Ethan's mind raced. He had no real weapons and no way to call for help, but he would not let them take the girl. He waited as the first tracker moved near his hiding spot, the blue lights from the mask casting shadows across the stones. Just as the tracker turned away, Ethan jumped up and slammed the heavy knife into the side of the tracker's weapon. Sparks flew. The tracker swung around, slamming into Ethan and knocking him back into the moss. The tracker pointed his weapon at Ethan's chest, but Ethan rolled aside, grabbing a loose stone and hurling it at the mask. The mask cracked, and the tracker stumbled, blinded for a moment. The other two trackers rushed toward the sound. Lyra, watching from her hiding place, saw Ethan in trouble. She laid Mira gently on the ground and picked up a sharp rock. With all her strength, she threw it at one of the trackers, striking the metal mask and distracting him. Hush! The tracker spun and fired a shot. Blue energy blasted a stone pillar, sending dust and chips flying. Ethan used the chance to crawl away, blood running down his arm from a scrape. He saw Lyra waving at him, her face full of fear, but also courage. "We have to run," Lyra called out, her voice breaking. Ethan nodded. He scooped up Mira in his arms, surprised at how light she felt. Together, Ethan and Lyra dashed through the ruins, dodging blasts of blue light. The trackers shouted, their footsteps thundering. Behind them, they ran until they reached the old hollow tree Lyra had described. Inside was just enough space for all three. Ethan pressed Myra close, covering her with his jacket. Lyra put her finger to her lips. Silent tears ran down her cheeks. Outside, the trackers searched and shouted, but the fog was thick and confusing. For now, the hunters had lost their prey. Inside the tree, Ethan held Mira and whispered softly, "Just a little longer. You're safe with us." But he knew this was only the beginning. The hunt was far from over. The sacrifice. The inside of the hollow tree was dark and cramped. Ethan pressed his back against the damp wood, holding Mira carefully in his arms. Lyra sat beside them, listening to every sound outside. Her heart thudded so loudly, she was sure the trackers could hear it. Ethan looked down at Mira. Her eyelids fluttered. He whispered her name softly. For a moment, her eyes opened, clear and blue. She tried to smile, but her lips were too dry. Ethan brushed a strand of hair from Mira's face. "Hang on, little one," he said gently. "We're not giving up." Lyra squeezed her daughter's hand. The blue flower's medicine was working slowly. Myra's breathing was stronger, and some color had returned to her cheeks. But they were not safe yet. Footsteps crunched outside, circling the tree. The trackers argued in their cold, mechanical voices. "They are hiding. We must search every shadow." One of them hit the tree with his weapon. The wood shook. Myra whimpered, but Lyra pressed her close and whispered soothing words in her alien language. Suddenly, one tracker spotted footprints in the mud leading straight to the tree. He signaled the others. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The trunk split open with a sharp crack. Blue light flooded inside. Ethan shielded Mira as best as he could. Lyra rose to her feet, standing between her family and the trackers. The leader stepped forward. His mask glowed bright. "Give us the child," he ordered. "No harm will come to you if you obey." Lyra's eyes flashed. "No, she is my daughter. She is not your tool." Her voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the fear underneath. The tracker moved closer. Lyra spread her arms, blocking the entrance completely. "I beg you," she said, her voice breaking. "Let the child and the human go. I will surrender myself. Take me. Do whatever you wish. But let them be free." The leader seemed surprised. He raised his weapon, pointing it at Lyra's chest. "You would give up your life for the girl." Lyra nodded. "She is everything to me. I would give my life 100 times." She looked back at Ethan, her eyes filled with sorrow and love. Please, take Mira. Run. She can't fall into their hands. Ethan wanted to argue, but there was no time. Lyra turned back to the trackers. Take me now, she said. 2 trackers grabbed Lyra roughly. She didn't struggle. She only glanced at Mira, whispering in her native tongue, I love you. Be brave. The leader pointed at Ethan. If you run, we will find you. Earth is small. You cannot hide forever. Lyra, held tight by the trackers, shouted, Go. Run now. Please save her. Ethan didn't wait. He tucked Mira tightly under his coat and bolted from the tree. The trackers fired their weapons, blue energy crackling through the mist. Ethan zigzagged through the ruins, slipping and stumbling on wet stones. Mira clung to his neck, weak but alive. Behind him, Lyra struggled against her captors, trying to distract them and draw their attention. She screamed at the top of her lungs, kicking and twisting. The leader grew angry and signaled his team to chase Ethan, but Lyra threw herself in their path, slowing them just long enough for Ethan to vanish into the shadows. Ethan ran for what felt like forever. His lungs burned and his legs shook, but he would not stop. He could hear the trackers shouting, their voices echoing off the stone. Finally, Ethan found a narrow path through thick bushes and sprinted down it, branches tearing at his face and hands. He didn't care. He just kept running. When he finally stopped, heart racing, he looked at Mira. She stared up at him, her eyes clearer than before. Where's Mama? She whispered. Ethan's heart broke. He held her close. Your mama is the bravest person I've ever met, he said. She's buying us time. We have to keep moving for her. Mira nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. But Ethan could see something else in her eyes now, strength. The medicine was working. Her gift, small but growing, shimmered inside her. Ethan wiped her tears and looked ahead, vowing he would not let Lyra's sacrifice be for nothing. The forest was quiet now, except for the distant sounds of the trackers searching. Ethan crouched beside a fallen log, hiding in the shadows. He thought about Lyra's words about love, sacrifice, and courage. He promised himself, if he survived, he would find a way to bring Lyra back. For now, he would protect Mira with everything he had. Night fell again, cold and full of new dangers. But for the first time, Ethan felt hope burning in the darkness. He and Mira would not give up. Lyra's sacrifice had given them a chance, and that chance was everything. Asterisk. Miracle and betrayal night deepened over the ancient forest, and a cold wind swept through the ruins. Ethan pressed close to Mira beneath a tangle of roots and ferns, both of them hidden by thick, tangled branches. His heart still raced from the escape. He listened for any hint of the trackers' boots or the unnatural hum of their weapons. But for now, the woods were quiet except for the distant cry of an owl. Myra shivered in his arms. Her face was still pale, but there was a new spark in her eyes. Ethan checked her forehead. Her fever had faded. The blue flower had worked its magic. Her breathing was steady, and her small hands felt warmer. He gave her a little water and some bread, then wrapped her tighter in his jacket. "How do you feel?" he whispered. "I'm not so tired anymore," Myra whispered back. She touched Ethan's arm. "Are we safe now?" Ethan managed a shaky smile. "For now, yes. But we have to keep moving when the sun comes up. We need to get far away from here, find help for your mom." Myra nodded, bravely fighting back tears. "Mama said I'm special, but I only wanted to be her daughter." Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of Lyra's sacrifice. "You're special because you care about others. That's real strength." He gently squeezed her hand. "We'll find your mom, I promise." Suddenly, a sharp twig snapped somewhere. In the darkness, Ethan froze, eyes wide. Mira tensed, hiding behind him. A shadow moved through the trees, tall and silent, with a faint blue glow. Ethan held his breath. Had the trackers found them again? The shadow moved closer. For a moment, Ethan thought it was another tracker. But then he saw a familiar face, Lyra's. Face pale, bruised, but alive. She limped toward them, one hand pressed to her side. "Mama," Mira cried softly, leaping into her mother's arms. Lyra hugged her daughter tight, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I'd lost you both," she whispered. Ethan was stunned. "How did you escape?" Lyra shook her head, her voice trembling. The trackers argued. One wanted to take me back to their ship, but the other two wanted to keep hunting. For you, I broke free when they fought with each other. But, she paused, looking at the ground. One of them saw me escape. He's still following. No sooner had she finished speaking than another figure stepped into the clearing. Tall tracker, mask cracked from Ethan's earlier attack. Aimed his weapon at the group. "Enough running," the tracker hissed. "The child comes with me now." Ethan stood in front of Myra and Lyra, holding his knife. He knew he couldn't win a fight, but he wouldn't let them go without trying. "You'll have to go through me," he said, voice steady. The tracker laughed, a cold, metallic sound. He stepped closer. Mira looked at Ethan, then at her mother. She reached out and touched Ethan's wounded arm where the tracker had hurt him before. Suddenly, warmth spread from Myra's palm. Ethan felt his pain vanish. The cut on his arm closed, leaving only a faint mark. The tracker saw what Mira had done. "Her power," shouted, aiming his weapon at her. "She is valuable. Step aside." Human, but Ethan didn't move. Lyra moved in front of Mira, shielding her with her own body. "If you want her, you must take me first." The tracker fired. A flash of blue light struck Lyra's shoulder, sending her to her knees. Myra screamed, but Ethan charged at the tracker with all his strength. He slammed into the tracker, knocking the weapon away. They wrestled on the ground. The tracker was strong, but Ethan's anger made him stronger. He finally managed to pin the tracker down, but the tracker pulled out a hidden blade and swung it at Ethan. Lyra, ignoring her own pain, grabbed a rock and struck the tracker's mask with all her might. The mask shattered, revealing a cold, alien face underneath. The tracker hissed and tried to fight back, but Ethan and Lyra together overpowered him. At last, the tracker collapsed. Defeated, Ethan and Lyra leaned on each other, breathing hard. Mira crawled over, hugging both of them. "I knew you would save me," she whispered. Ethan smiled, tears of relief in his eyes. "You saved us too, Mira. Your gift? It's a miracle." Lyra kissed her daughter's head. "You're more than a miracle, you are hope." But as they rested, Ethan realized the tracker's words meant something more. He said, "You're valuable." "They might send others, Lyra. We can't stay here." Lyra nodded, fear in her eyes. "We must find a new home, somewhere safe. Ethan promised, you'll have my help. I won't leave you." And as the first light of dawn crept over the trees, the little family prepared to move on together. The night's pain faded, but new dangers still waited on the horizon. Hope for tomorrow, the pale dawn washed over the silent forest as Ethan, Lyra, and Mira moved carefully through the trees. Their bodies ached with tiredness, but hope pushed them forward. Every step away from the ruins felt like a new beginning. Even as the shadows of the night still clung to their memories, Ethan carried Mira on his back. Her small arms wrapped gently around his neck. Though she was still weak, her eyes were brighter, now curious and watching the sunlight filter through the leaves above. Lyra walked close, sometimes touching her daughter's hand to reassure herself this was not just a dream. She still limped from her wound, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in many years. As they moved, the world around them seemed to change. The storm was gone, leaving the air crisp and clean. Birds sang in the branches, and small animals peeked out from their hiding places. For the first time, Ethan noticed the beauty of the forest instead of its dangers. They stopped to rest by a quiet stream. Lyra cleaned her wound while Ethan watched the water bubble over the stones. Mira, finally strong enough to stand, dipped her toes in the stream and laughed. It was a soft, delicate sound, but it made Ethan's heart swell. He realized how rare that laughter must have been in Myra's short, hard life. "Mama, look," Mira called. She pointed to a bright blue butterfly landing on her finger. Lyra smiled a real, warm smile that made her look younger, even with all her scars. Ethan felt the tension in his chest loosen. "You're going to be all right, Mira. Both of you are." Lyra nodded, but her eyes filled with tears. "We could never have made it without you, Ethan. You risked everything for strangers." Why? Ethan looked at them and shrugged. "Maybe I was lonely," he said honestly. "But when I saw how much you loved your daughter, I knew I couldn't turn you away, family. That's what really matters. Even if it isn't the family you expected." The three of them sat in silence for a while, just listening to the world around them. It was peaceful, a kind of peace Ethan hadn't known in years. As the sun climbed higher, Lyra spoke again. "What will we do now? The trackers may come back. More might be sent after us." Double quotes, Ethan thought about it. "We can't stay here forever, but I know some good people in the next town. People who help those in trouble, even if they're not human. We'll rest for a day, then I'll take you to them. Maybe you can start a new life." Lyra looked uncertain, but Ethan squeezed her shoulder gently. "You don't have to be afraid. I'll go with you. No one will hurt you or Mira again." Mira leaned against Ethan's side, holding his hand tightly. "Are you my family now?" she asked, her voice very small. Ethan's eyes softened. "If you'll have me, then yes, I'd like that." Lyra smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Ethan. You have given us more than just safety. You gave us hope." The day passed slowly. They shared simple food and talked about their old homes, Ethan about his childhood in a distant city, Lyra about her lost planet and the colors of the sky there, Mira about the strange animals she had seen on Earth. For the first time, they all laughed together as if they truly belonged. By evening, Ethan set up a small fire and taught Mira how to toast bread on a stick. She giggled every time the bread fell into the flames, and Lyra pretended to scold her, but her laughter was gentle. As the stars came out, Ethan looked up, wondering what other secrets the universe held. He knew their troubles weren't over there, would always be those who hunted the weak, who wanted to use others' gifts. But as he glanced at Lyra and Mira beside him, he felt stronger than ever. "We'll face whatever comes next," he said, quietly, "together." Mira crawled into his lap, her head against his chest. "Promise you won't leave us." Ethan hugged her close. Lyra put her arm around both of them, and for a moment, all the pain and fear of the past seemed far away. The three of them sat beneath the wide, endless sky, stars shining above, and for the first time, they let themselves dream of a future. Not just a life of running and hiding, but a real home, where kindness and courage could grow. Because sometimes, Ethan realized, the greatest miracles came not from special powers, but from the simple act of saving someone and letting yourself be saved in return.